We oftentimes ask kids, or tell kids, I should say, that there is no such thing as a dumb question. Well, I'm going to ask you a very dumb question right now. And the question is this: if I gave you the option of being a high performer, a mediocre performer, or a low performer, which would you choose? You're obviously going to choose the high performer. And the thing is that when we look at high performers, and we're going to take, in this example, athletes, look at high performance athletes. One thing that every high performance athlete does is they prioritize rest and recovery, which means they prioritize their sleep. Now, it's pretty obvious when we look at athletes, like, this should be built into their routine. I mean, you figure that they're going hard in practice, they're going hard in games, they're putting their bodies under a tremendous amount of stress. And so there is this innate need to have that time to recover from all of that stress. But let me ask you a question. What makes you any different than a high performance athlete? Most especially if you want to be a high performer in your life as a mother, a father, an employee, a business owner, you name it. We all strive to be high performers in some realm. And then we also strive to have high performance from our bodies, right? We want to be leaner. We want to be more agile. We want to have more energy. We want to have more vigor. So if we all want this, then why do we not prioritize our sleep? For many of us, we tend to feel like, well, with those extra hours, I could get this done and that done. But are we really getting it done at the highest level that we possibly could? So the question is, why are you not getting more sleep if this is literally the key to higher performance and greater fat loss? Because I'm telling you right now, you are going to be seeing over the course of the next few years a tremendous outpouring of research around the importance of sleep and how it relates specifically to fat loss. And I mean, we know that it makes sense that you're going to perform at a higher level if you get enough sleep, but you probably didn't realize this. Just one night of sleep deprivation, one night, can make you as insulin sensitive, I should say, as somebody who's a type 2 diabetic. That is nuts. Now you wonder why, after several weeks of sleep deprivation, night after night, you're wondering why you can't drop body fat, or you're wondering why you can't kick the sugar cravings, or why in the middle of the day, your energy just suddenly starts to plummet, or you can't maintain your mental focus. It's sleep deprivation. And most of us get less than 6 hours of sleep a night. Like the average American gets around 6 hours. And we've often heard that you need 8 hours of sleep a night. And that's because you do need an average of 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night for your body to fully recover and for you to function at the highest level. But guess what also happens when you have those sleep deprived nights? You're also waking up with higher cortisol levels. So here we go. Let's get hormonal. All right. You have your insulin levels being ultra sensitive because of this deprivation of sleep, which means that your body is more likely to store the food that comes in as fat. Then you have these elevated cortisol levels because you're not getting enough sleep. And guess what cortisol does? That's what's responsible for you storing fat in your belly. So if you're telling me that, Mike, I haven't changed anything over the last several years, my nutrition's the same, like everything looks good on paper, but I'm gaining all this body fat. Well, one of the first things we should be looking at is examining what your sleep actually looks like, because there's going to come a point where your body just can't take it anymore, where it's not fully recovering. It is well overstressed. And if it is overstressed, then no matter how good you eat, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, it's crazy to think that being sleep deprived it has the same exact effect on you as if you were eating a ton of crap. So even without eating a ton of crap, you can still get the same side effects as eating a ton of crap. That is absolutely mind-blowing. And it's probably going to open up some of your eyes right now because you're thinking, yeah, you know what? I do eat healthy. In fact, we hear it all the time when we talk to people for the first time before they come into our studios or any of our programs. One of the questions, one of the things that's often mentioned is, hey, I eat pretty healthy. And then if you go through the list of things that they're eating, for most intents and purposes, with the exception of the occasional snacking here and there, or maybe a drink or two on the weekend, right? Not the worst thing in the world, but yet they're still struggling with fat loss, or they're even worse, struggling with fat gain. It just keeps coming on, even though they're doing seemingly everything right, maybe except this one thing, which is prioritizing sleep, which is why during our November No Nonsense Challenge, we have made that an absolute priority. We have made it a priority in this household. In fact, the other night, as Corey, Beth, and I were sitting there watching Netflix, I suddenly turned off the TV and she goes, right in the middle of the show. She's like, what are you doing? I go, we're done. It's time to go to bed. It's like, got to make sure we get 7 hours. And in fact, I intentionally have been pushing it to 8 hours as much as possible. And I could tell you that even for myself, a person who usually does average about 7, getting that 7.5 to 8 has made a tremendous difference just in the last 2 weeks. So I bring it back to the beginning. What kind of performer do you want to be? High performer, mediocre, or low? If you're getting under 6 hours of sleep consistently right now, we know where you're at. You're in that low to mediocre range. And you need to just do one thing, prioritize one thing. Get to bed a little bit earlier. And it could make all the difference and take you from that mediocre performer to that high performer. From a person struggling to lose body fat to somebody who's just watching it melt off their body. All right, so we got some things to do now. We got to figure out what we're going to do differently in our nighttime routine. We're going to figure out what we need to take away, remove, or set to the side so that we can get that extra hour of sleep. And mom is out there with kids, especially youngins, babies, newborns. I know this is not easy. And so I am not stressing this for you. You get your sleep, you get your rest when you can, as much as you can. And then when that kid is ready to stay in bed by themselves, you just make sure now your sleep is prioritized. All right? All right, guys. Hope you're doing awesome. Hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day, and we will catch you tomorrow.